I'm Julian.
And I'm Tom.
And we are Team Binge. And we are currently in stoppage time, which is what we're calling the distance between season 2 of Ted Lasso and season 3 of Ted Lasso. Mm-hmm. Because nothing else is going on until those things meet.
Nothing else. In media, in anything. So we have to go back to do old media.
Very true. And the old media we're doing today came out in 2016, and it's a movie called
Colossal.
Colossal, starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. The reason we picked this movie, Tom, is...
Jason Sudeikis is Ted Lasso.
Is Ted Lasso. That's correct. That's the Lasso connection.
We might find some more as we discuss.
There's no other connections. We chose this one. I'm going to say at the top that the thing to do is to really dog on this movie. But I'm going to lead with this.
Okay.
I'm glad I watched this movie.
Okay. Interesting.
It was not my idea to watch this movie.
It was mine.
I'm not casting blame on anyone. But I will say, from the top, I'm glad I watched it.
Okay.
And as we talk about it, I think you'll see why. So, really fast, for those of you that have not seen this movie... If you've seen Godzilla or a Godzilla-adjacent movie, you probably saw this movie. You may not remember the name, but the woman from Devil Wears Prada's in it. If you're like, hey, I might have seen that or a preview, it was this movie. I'm going to give you a quick summary, a true summary of this movie, so that if you haven't seen it, you can still hang out with us.
I love the Julian summaries.
It'll be a good time.
Let's hear it.
Well, this one's pretty straightforward. This movie's about Gloria played by Anne Hathaway, who is an alcoholic ex-blogger who has a falling out with her boyfriend, who happens to be British. They live in New York City together. They move back to her hometown. I took her hometown to be kind of like a strange Pennsylvania type.
I think it's Vania. Yeah,
okay.
Maybe Ohio.
Not far from New York City, but enough that like New York City's the big city. Anyways, or the Big Apple, as they say in New York. She reunites with an elementary school friend named Oscar. Oscar is played by one very charming Jason Sudeikis.
Whole way through.
And Oscar never left their hometown. He now owns and runs a family bar. Oscar offers Gloria a job at the bar and seems to be very sweet on her, offering her kind gestures of help to get her back on her feet, because he can clearly see she's struggling. After a night of drinking, Gloria wakes to find out a large Godzilla, I believe, kaiju is the name?
Very good.
Kaiju. If you look in the outline, I've spelled it 12 different ways. This kaiju appears in Seoul. She discovers slowly that this is a manifestation of her, and it occurs whenever she is at the elementary school playground that she used to visit when she was a kid at a specific time.
Yep, that old tale.
A tale as old as time, as the song says. She then shows Oscar and his kind of gang of misfits, and we discover that Oscar can manifest a robot kaiju if he's there with her. If you're not following this story at this point... I don't know what to tell you, because this is the best explanation anyone has ever made of this movie. Gloria has a thing not for Oscar, but his friend Joel. When Oscar finds out, he gets jealous, and in retaliation, he uses his robot kaiju to threaten the city of Seoul. We see Oscar become more and more manipulative and controlling towards Gloria. Gloria's ex shows up. And Oscar sets off fireworks in his own bar to, like, keep Gloria from leaving and to show he's out of control. They then have a fight on a playground where Oscar wins.
Yes.
Letting Gloria know, he lets her know that if she leaves, he's going to come to the playground every morning and destroy Seoul through his robot, which is a manifestation of his soul. You're welcome.
Just to be clear, Seoul is South Korea.
South Korea, yes. The good Korea. Gloria, in a surprising move, flies to Seoul, and in some weird opposite polarity thing, makes her kaiju appear at the playground of her hometown. She then kills Oscar after he yells at her. We assume he's dead. I don't think he's gonna.
We'll dissect that a little bit later.
Wonderful. Gloria then goes to a bar in Seoul and is annoyed when offered a drink. Because when you go to a bar, being offered a drink is a real annoyance.
That is quite a summary.
Cut to black.
Okay. And that's it.
Star swipe to black.
That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's podcast.
Oh, and somewhere in there we discover the whole thing stems from Oscar and Gloria being kids on the playground and Oscar destroying her diorama. Tom?
Yeah.
You have the floor. Explain all of it.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. Because
much unpacking.
Because you did the entire movie. I think before we start unpacking, let's go ahead and unpack the cast. Let's meet the
Sure. Who played the kaiju that was vaguely gorilla shaped? Tom?
That was played by Anne Hathaway.
Brilliant makeup work, by the way.
So the movie she was doing before this was Intern. You ever see that movie with Robert De Niro?
No.
It's a good movie. We should watch that.
I haven't seen it.
Alice Through the Looking Glass. It was like a Alice in Wonderland kind of remake.
Never heard of it.
And then after, so she then did this movie. After this, then she did Ocean's 8, the remake of the Ocean's 11 film with the star-studded female cast.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that's Anne Hathaway. Then we got Jason Sudeikis, as you mentioned, who played Oscar. So before this movie, he did Book of Love, which I think is a British movie with Maisie Williams, who played Arya Stark. I feel like I saw the poster and it was familiar to you. No?
No.
Nothing.
But
okay.
I'm sorry, are they love interests?
No.
Maisie Williams and Jason Sudeikis? Because Maisie Williams is a child.
She is younger. I don't know. I think he's a father figure to her. I could be wrong. All I saw was the poster. And then Jason Sudeikis was also doing Angry Birds. He was doing the voice work.
I love Angry Birds.
Probably some mocap work for Angry Birds.
I've never seen it.
And then after this film, he did Masterminds, which is kind of the heist movie with Galifianakis, Owen Wilson, and Kristen Wiig. Yeah. Do you remember that movie?
Never saw it.
Again, another interesting movie. But that gives you a rough timeline of where kind of our two main stars were in their careers. I think Sudeikis didn't really do as much film work as Anne Hathaway had done at this point. He was more SNL, I think-ish.
Was this before or after Horrible Bosses? Do you know?
I think this was after Horrible Bosses.
After Horrible Bosses?
Yeah, because they did 2 Horrible Bosses, so I'm pretty sure it was actually both of them might have been before this.
Where do you fall on the Anne Hathaway side? Like, is Anne Hathaway someone where you find out she's in a movie and you're like, cool, I like Anne Hathaway?
Yeah.
Or is Anne Hathaway like the annoying drama kid that you don't want to have to see in a film?
No, I love Anne Hathaway. I think she did a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. I think it's like Love and Drugs, something like that. I'm messing that up. But it was a really, really good movie. And then obviously...
I'm for half of that movie.
For half of it. And then Devil Wears Prada. She was fantastic in that. I think she's great in everything she's been in.
Okay. I am also pro Hathaway. I liked her in Les Mis. And... there is a very soft spot in my heart for her as Catwoman in the
that's right.
Nolan Batman movies.
The Nolanverse, yes.
I thought she was a great Catwoman.
Agreed. We also have...
Do you like Jason Sudeikis?
He's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen him do anything recently that's been entertaining.
Sure. I wish he would do some sort of weird British comedy that's both heartfelt and heartfelt.
I just want more Angry Birds. Then we've got Tim Blake Nelson, who plays Garth, who's one of the kind of bar regulars that frequents Sudeikis' bar.
Jason Sudeikis and his 2 buddies that hang out and just drink beer all night, every night. Like, I found this an incredible way to live life.
Sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon. That's all they were drinking, which we are now sponsored by.
Well, if
Pabst.
you can buy it for $1 at a bar, it's going to be someone's favorite.
I guess, yeah. If you're Sudeikis and you're the bartender, like that's the beer you want to be giving to all your friends.
Markup, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about commerce and bars and where you're going to make money. You know, I say parking. Parking's where the money's at.
Oh God, here we go.
All these spots are compact.
Let's not talk about parking until we get into the stadium.
Did you recognize Garth?
I knew him from probably his most recent endeavors, Watchmen, the TV series. He plays Rorschach.
Okay.
Really good job of Rorschach. And then he was a role in this movie called Holes when I was a kid, which was like younger. It was like one of my first jobs I had. It was working at like a Blockbuster kind of video store.
Sure.
And whoever worked the Blockbuster side kept playing this movie over and over and over again. So like I know the movie by heart, but I've only seen it once. And this was one of the guys who was in it, and he had a very distinctive voice.
It's a Shia LaBeouf movie.
Yes, a young
right?
Shia LaBeouf.
Do you know who the author of Holes is?
Charles Dickinson, right?
No, Lewis. I think it's Sanchar. He's the guy that wrote Sideways Stories from Wayside School.
Look at this.
Yeah.
We're learning things.
Anyways, it was a good book. I never saw the movie.
What do you know Tim Blake Nelson from?
I think everyone would recognize him from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That classic film that
Soggy Bottom
loves.
Boys.
Yeah. I'm a Dapper Dan man. And then everyone, I'm sure, recognized Joel, the generic, handsome Joel.
Played by Austin Stowell. I looked up his IMDb. He's from Bridge of Spies, Fantasy Island, I feel like where I
thought he was someone else. I was like, oh, I know this guy. And then I looked at his IMDb and I was like, I don't know this guy.
To me, he looked like a Manning brother. A very handsome Manning brother.
Oh, wow.
No? Anything?
I did not see the connection with the Manning brothers, but I looked him up and I was like, oh, he was in Dolphin Tale 2.
Oh, the sequel.
That's cool.
That was much better.
I think it was in Dolphin Tale 1 too.
That's when the dolphin got the tail back.
Terrible joke.
I don't actually even think that's a joke. I think that's what happens in that movie.
No, are you serious?
I think they give that dolphin a tail.
Did the dolphin not have a tail?
Yeah, and they like give him a tail, like not an animatronic, but like a 3D printed tail, and the dolphin's got to learn to swim with it.
Tom, why are we not doing that movie? That's right up our alley.
All right.
Well, they spell it T-A-L-E. Anyways, this is neither here nor there.
We digress.
Tim, the ex-boyfriend, is Dan Stevens. And did you recognize him?
Oh.
Other than just being handsome and British. You actually kind of look like him now that I'm staring at you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Dan Stevens, I know as the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, the remake with Harry Potter girl.
Okay. If you're expecting me to fill in the blank of Harry Potter girl, I will not.
Hermione Granger.
Hermione Granger, that's the actress. That's right.
Good enough. But apparently also in Downton Abbey, because he's British, and if you're British, you're in Downton Abbey.
Or yeah, I'm sure he was in a PBS Miss Marple as well, probably.
Mm-hmm.
That joke is for the people that grew up on PBS.
But a pretty small cast. Like this is the core group. You got a few ancillary kind of side characters that help drive the plot, but this is our crew. These are our main guys.
And I gotta be honest, I thought it was like there was only one moment, and I'm sure we'll get to it, where I was like, oh, that's a weird choice. Otherwise, I thought they all did great. Like, this was a movie where, and you sat with me through movies, I like to guess what's going on.
Yes.
Like, that's how my brain works. My brain is trying to solve, like, okay, where's the twist?
Mm-hmm.
What is happening? I will say, at the very top, I did not know what was happening in this film. Not from a, like, they didn't explain it,
mm-hmm.
but I was like, wait, that's where they went? That's where this is going?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I assumed from the meet cute that Jason Sudeikis was going to be, like, a nice, charming, friendly fella.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe with a little bit of a booze problem, but we can forgive that. That's not where the movie went. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I appreciated this movie for its originality because I don't really know that I could relate it to anything else.
It's a complete subversion of this genre. Like, you go in, and I think even the trailers for this movie pushed it as, like, a fun-loving comedy with kaiju and all that kind of stuff. Because
it's not fun-loving, Tom.
No, it's very far from it.
In fact, you had seen this movie, right?
I had, like,
you saw
years
this movie
and years.
in theater. Opening night, you were in line, dressed as a kaiju. The midnight showing, you and all your kaiju heads.
My brother was a robot.
Your brother was a robot. You went in and saw it. So you had seen this. You suggested this. I had not seen this. I've now seen this movie twice. Well, I'll say 1.5 times because the second time was at like 4 times speed. But that's just how I watch things. Do you remember liking it the first go round?
No, I remember. So we were picking a movie, and we were like, "Oh, let's pick a Sudeikis movie." Like the easy one is Horrible Bosses. That's a big comedy. But we're like, well, let's pick something kind of a little bit around the edges. So I remember seeing this movie. I did not remember any of the beats. All I remember is that I left the movie thinking, this was strange. This was not the movie I expected.
Right.
So then when I told you kind of the general plot, I'm like, oh, I think it's a comedy and it has some drama in it. I'm like, all right, right up the Ted Lasso alley.
Sure.
And yeah, didn't do any of the research outside of watching it.
No, I don't think you remembered this movie very well because you sent me a message that was like, man, that's a lot darker than I remember it.
Yes.
And I would agree with that.
And like to your point, like it's a movie that subverts the genre, and to me, there's not one character in this movie that is likable. Like every character is like a monster in their own way, like in their own right. All these major characters.
When you're saying subverting the genre, what genre are they subverting? Are you talking like romantic comedy, like like with the meet cute and like she's the big city professional that can't get her stuff together. She moves back to Sweet Home Alabama and like discovers her true love. You're talking about that?
Yes.
Or are you talking about Godzilla movies?
I think like the whole Godzilla thing is just a means to like bring in a certain audience, and then it's kind of subverting it. But this movie really...
You think there are a bunch of kids like holding their King Kong and Godzilla toys in the audience, and they were like, oh, thank goodness these kids bought tickets, and those kids are like, what am I watching?
I don't know if I would have ever given this a chance if it didn't have like that weird, crazy fantasy kaiju element. Like if it was just kind of sold as her going back in like a romantic comedy, and then they subvert that by just having, you know, Sudeikis be a jerk the whole time. Like that's interesting in and of itself, but that probably wouldn't have brought me to theater. Or again, I didn't see it in theater, but wouldn't have had me see it. Like I watched this movie initially based off of like the cover art of the poster.
Okay.
Like her scratching her head and the, you know, the kaiju behind her. I thought like, oh, this is interesting.
I would like to go on record as saying if they are going to make a romantic comedy with Jason Sudeikis and Anne Hathaway, probably won't go to the theater because I only go to the theater for movies like The Green Knight, which is a different story in itself. But I would 100% stream that movie for free, I don't know, on YouTube or something.
It'll come out soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I do want to dissect this movie, but before we get too deep into it, I do want to go over some kind of general movie facts about this film. So the tagline to this movie is, "There's a monster in all of us," which I think is fair. It's a solid tagline.
Whoa. Is it fair that there is a monster in all of us, or is it fair that there's a monster in all the people in this movie?
All the people in this movie, but I would imagine like everybody's got their demons, right?
I only have a demon inside of me if it's like a gluttonous likes potato chips demon. That's probably the only demon I have inside of me.
All right. It was directed by...
Put that on my tombstone.
Like a t-shirt. It was directed by Nacho Vigalondo. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly. He's a Spanish director, apparently very famous Spanish director. He was nominated for an Oscar in 2005 for a live-action short film called 7:35 in the Morning. I did look up some of his other pedigree, and he does have some very interesting movies. And one thing about this film, whether you love it or hate it, and I'm sure there's people on both sides of the aisle here, it was shot really, really well. I thought there was a really cool cinematography. I think like the way they kind of framed some of the stuff, like especially when she kind of first showed that she was the kaiju and kind of having like the mocap back and forth. I thought it was really cool.
There is nothing about this movie that like I was like, oh, that's dumb or shot poorly. Like it's a really, really well, as you said, shot film, looks great, everyone's acting well. It's just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like that, and that's not even a complaint because like most of the time you go to a movie and you're just kind of watching the same thing over and over again. This was like legitimately original, but also like maybe you see why people don't swing for the fence of originality because you walk out of the story and you're like, wait, what? Like,
right, yeah.
So, but yeah, I had not heard of that guy. I'm familiar with Nachos, but not him.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Another movie fact, Anne Hathaway was pregnant while filming this movie. Apparently in her second trimester, so relatively long on. But, I mean, I don't know if it was cold weather, but I think she was in relatively big clothes throughout the whole movie, so it was pretty easy to kind of probably pass that.
That makes sense. She was in the kaiju.
The kaiju outfit, yeah. It's a pretty skinny kaiju, though.
That is fair.
Anne Hathaway was the first to sign on to this. Did a little bit of digging. Apparently, she was kind of like in a lull in her career. She didn't kind of know what she wanted to do next, and she found she wanted to do something a little bit more original and kind of off the wall.
Oh, this is original and off the wall, Anne. Good pick.
And she likened this script to something similar to like Being John Malkovich. What I don't know if I really see that, but again, a little bit more unique of a film. If you haven't seen Being John Malkovich, I'd recommend that one. Or if you don't like John Malkovich, don't watch it. There's a lot of him in that one. This was like the movie pitch, like I think from the director. It was pitched as Godzilla meets Lost in Translation, the Bill Murray joint where he goes to somewhere in Asia. I don't know exactly where. Tokyo, maybe?
Tom, I've got some things to confess to you as you've been saying these things.
Continue.
I've never seen Being John Malkovich. I've never seen Lost in Translation, but you can bet I've seen every Godzilla movie there is out there.
There's been a decent amount.
We used to have the Godzilla movies that we had on a VHS, like taped off of the television.
Like the Toho production?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are my jam.
Wow.
Like King Kong vs. Godzilla. I can remember scenes like vividly right now. The guy makes this like super tough string and then he like puts it around his body and he's off a balcony showing off and it's all dubbed and everything. So I've seen Godzilla, but none of these other what would seem really highbrow movies.
Super highbrow.
Yeah, I'm not a highbrow guy.
This was primarily filmed in Vancouver.
Ah, in Canada.
Yeah, the Canadians.
Nice.
Let's get to the numbers. Budget. This had a budget of 15 million smackers.
That seems small for a movie, but as you mentioned, the cast isn't very big.
Not a whole lot of set pieces. It's a bar. It's the playground. Probably the money went into the kaijus.
I would assume the money went into rebuilding Seoul. No?
Probably more expensive.
No? Is this mic on?
Worldwide gross, not quite as much. Did not come close to breaking even. 4.5 million.
This seems like a movie that would do well overseas.
That's what I kind of thought. I don't even think it had much of a release in Asia. I think it was like Canada. I should have wrote this down. It was like Canada, United States, and like maybe like Cannes, so like in Spain or something like that. So he's obviously a Spanish director. But I think it was more like a smaller independent film festival type movie. It did have a wide release here in the United States, but wasn't a huge worldwide phenomenon.
Maybe we should pick more popular movies between Super Bob and Colossal. The gross profit of the movies is $5 million.
Dude, there's millions of podcasts out there of people talking about popular stuff. We're gonna find this niche right in this little corner of the internet.
All right, well, if you want to watch every romantic comedy about someone manifesting Godzilla, I'm in. I don't think I have any concept of... Well, the fact that this movie was I don't know that it hit my radar when it came out. I don't know anyone that's ever been like, hey man, have you ever seen Colossal? That movie's great. So, I know you looked it up. I did not. I would have to say this is it did poorly on Rotten Tomatoes. I can't imagine it was a high scoring.
You talking about from audience or from critic?
I would say both. I just don't think this one had the legs of the kaiju to go the distance. But you looked it up. I did it.
Yes. So the critic score, you'd be wrong. It's 81%. So it is a certified fresh film.
Spit take. 81?
81%, man. Pretty high up there.
That is.
And then 59%, which is probably a little bit less surprising for the audience score.
So critics liked it. You said 81.
Yep.
Do you think that's because critics always watch a movie like this and they're like, oh, it's so deep, we've got to really like it?
I'm sure there's some of that.
Us normal people are like, wait, the robot and the lizard are not going to fight, and there's no Captain America. Why am I here? There's a lot of truth to that. I was going to say there's no nudity, but that would just get me in trouble.
And there's plenty of popcorn films that I was going to say Fast and the Furious franchise, which they're always getting 95% because they're just fun blockbuster popcorn summer movies, whatever. But those still get relatively decent critic reviews because they know what they are.
I know that Super Bob is going to be in the Marvel Universe because I've started a change.org petition to get it put in the Marvel Universe. I think I might also put this one on the list as something in the Marvel Universe simply because there's large things invading Earth, and if anyone's going to fight them, it's going to be the Revengers.
Now, is this Marvel or DC? We've already established that Anne Hathaway is a Catwoman.
I don't understand the question, and I won't respond to it.
So yeah, the critics, they kind of mentioned like their tag was Colossal's singular strangeness can be disorienting, but viewers who hang on may find out that the genre-defying execution and Anne Hathaway's performance is well worth the ride. Which I think
is that Peter Travers?
I don't know who said that.
Do you know Peter Travers?
Is a critic?
Peter Travers was like the Rolling Stones or like Maxim critic who just liked every movie. So like he would have some sort of like complimentary thing in his reviews. So his name would get slapped on like every movie. It'd be like, Peter Travers says, not that bad. Like Dolphin Tale 3. Like that's Peter Travers. I think that's his name. Travers or Travels, who knows?
And then I did browse through some of the viewer reviews, which I thought were comical. One of the ones that I pulled out from Jape P. He said, "This movie is something for people who normally hate sci-fi and enjoy moronic, ham-fisted metaphors and unlikable characters."
Thank you, Japp. I think if you pronounced his username, you'd get in trouble. But yeah, I see where he's going. The themes for this movie, if I could pull them out, I would say they're these, Tom. And you can tell me whether or not I'm on the right track. Alcoholism. They're really down on alcoholism in this movie. They have an agenda against it. I'll say that much. Dependency. I guess maybe those things are the same, but whatever. No. I'll say dependency in like needing people. That sort of dependency, or getting someone to manipulating someone to be dependent on you. Okay. And that leads me to my other theme, which is manipulation.
Okay.
Both, like, you can see it from her in the beginning, like, she's clearly lying. She's trying to just keep, like, in the relationship with Tim. I don't think out of a sense of, like, love or romance, but out of a sense of, I need this person to, like, take care of me. And then you see it with Jason Sudeikis, him, like, offering her a job, offering her furniture, like almost like trying to provide her some security so that she will be dependent upon him. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. Okay. And then the big theme is Godzilla.
Yes.
The biggest theme of any movie has always been Godzilla.
When was that the largest theme?
Let me ask you this. What's your relationship to Godzilla? Like, did you grow up on Godzilla as a kid, or did you discover Godzilla when the movie came out with Matthew Broderick and Taco Bell did all of the Godzilla merch and you collected all the cups?
Oh, that's right, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Welcome
Brings
to
it
our
back.
youth.
No, I mean, I obviously knew of its Godzilla's existence and Mothra and Hydra and all the other kind of Dras that he attacked and had to fight, Mecha Godzilla, all that jazz.
So you had those old movies, or you were
I never watched them. I was exposed to them, but I never watched them. Like, I would just kind of see them, maybe watch the fights, but, you know, it was just big dudes in rubber suits hitting each other over a plastic city. So, I probably, like the Matthew Broderick, that remake I enjoyed that as a kid. Looking back at it, it's a just trash movie. The newer Godzillas they made, I thought were a lot more fun. At least like the first one, and then they kind of just went a little bit.
Do you remember when, like how old you were? Like, how old were you when you knew, like, deep down in your heart that you believed in Godzilla?
When I was...
And that he existed.
Maybe like 5. I'm pretty sure we had like a Godzilla toy.
Sure.
Yep.
And every Sunday.
Yeah.
You would
I took it. Yeah. I took it to Godzilla Shrine.
There you go.
So there is a tie-in with Godzilla because apparently the director, when he originally wanted to make this movie, he wanted
Which he wrote. We should point that out. He directed and wrote this.
Yes.
So this is his Godzilla baby.
This is his baby. Yeah. When he pitched it as like the cheapest Godzilla movie ever made, and I think when they were trying to do it, they wanted to like film it in Tokyo, and they wanted to do like a kaiju monster that was very similar in like size, well, obviously not size, but in size, but in shape of Godzilla. But the Toho, the production company that made all the Godzilla franchise, they sued him, and they sued it before the movie got released. So they had to actually change like the kaiju design and everything for this film, and like change it from Tokyo to Seoul, South Korea.
Do you think he was like, oh, this is going to be the cheapest Godzilla movie because we're going to have to take out the amount of money I'm getting sued for this statement
Possibly.
by the Godzilla people?
That could be part of that $50 million budget. I don't know how the budgets work. But I thought that was kind of interesting. But I agree with you in terms of your themes. I think some others are like clearly like toxic masculinity is very big in this, with like the way Sudeikis not only treats like her but like his friends and all that kind of stuff, as well as like kind of the guilt, responsibility, and just general like martyrdom with his characters.
Yeah, I didn't see the masculinity part. I saw like the toxic friendship part, but
you don't think he was treating her poorly because she was a woman and because of like the relationship that he had with her? I mean, he treats the other bar guys, like trash because he is clearly a monster of a character, but he goes above and beyond with Anne Hathaway.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair, and he is a man, so that would be something that's masculine.
But you don't believe in toxic masculinity, from what I remember.
I believe in toxic masculinity in the same way that I believe in Godzilla.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. Let's talk scenes, Tom. 5 best scenes. And I don't know that we need to put a number on it. I just said 5, but that's probably not what we're going to do. As I rewatched this, I was like, what are the best scenes out of this? And since we're typically talking about things that are funny, this was a little bit difficult because there's not a lot of funny in this movie.
No.
Not a lot of laugh out loud. Even though you want Jason Sudeikis to be like super charming, which he is at a couple of points. No funny stuff.
But I think, like, before you even get into it, I think that's why so much of this movie works for me, is because of, like, the subverting of the genre. Like, when you have Sudeikis in it, and, like, I think a lot of the stuff that he did before, especially SNL, as an SNL alum, like, you assume he's going to be, like, a fun, loving kind of character. So when he kind of comes in and she comes back to the small town and, they kind of have this little budding relationship, you just immediately assume he's a nice guy and, it's just going to be a love story. And that's why I think this worked well, because he was the lead.
Yeah, and forgive me, not like a complaint against the movie or him. Like, there's what I wanted this movie to be and what I wanted his character to be.
Yeah.
And then there's what it was. And on the second watch, like, there's some times where they, like, close up on his face and he's being, like, threatening and like over the top, like menacing, and he does it so well. And you're like, okay, SNL guy, typically funny and charming, but he does this character like scary well.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Yeah, it wasn't. I'm pointing out the fact that what I wanted was not what I got.
Yeah.
But I'm not upset with what I got.
Yeah.
It was just different.
Yeah.
The scenes I really liked. First night, where they're back in the back part of the bar. We like established, like, she hits on Joel, or she's got that comment about why do they never introduce you to like the handsome fellas?
Yeah.
Which I get introduced to everyone, so I felt that line and it hurt a little bit. We see like the dark side of Oscar, like that's where you get the first glimpse, like, because all we've seen of him at this point is he picks her up in the truck. He's like super nice, whatever. In this scene, like, they go to a corner booth and he goes and sits down with like his back to him, and he's like what he's like talking to them across the bar about is, you can see like he's not all that friendly, and maybe it's because he's been drinking.
Yeah.
Not
like
a
playing
real happy
cards.
drunk.
It's like doing magic tricks by himself or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And we see like the beginnings of some cracks of jealousy when they bring up her being the writer, him wanting to be the writer, and him like blowing up Joel in that. So I thought that was interesting because it took it from, oh, this is not Jason Sudeikis like being the nice guy romantic comedy, to there's some layers here.
Well, and it takes you out of it too, because I think why when he does that, like, my mind first went to like, oh, he's just doing a bit, like he's gonna say, oh, I'm just messing with you, kind of a thing, but he doesn't, and that's kind of that first kind of domino of what we'll kind of see later. From like this sequence, did you get the sense that Oscar was like into Gloria and was like upset that Joel was hitting on her, or was it like just like the possessiveness of Oscar and Jason Sudeikis' character?
I my impression was Oscar is into Gloria, has been into Gloria since elementary school, and is offended that Joel would. Because I think this is where he tries to kiss her too, right?
Yes, Joel goes in for the kiss. She goes back, and that's where Oscar
Right.
kind of jumps in.
But so there's 2 points to the jealousy thing. The jealousy thing is like, oh, Oscar, I didn't know you wanted to be a writer, and he's like, oh no, I never wanted to be a writer. She was the writer, and then Joel like makes a move on her, and then he comes back and he gets upset about that. So I did take it as Oscar was into Gloria, and that's why he was upset.
Can I ask though, when you say he's into her, like what do you mean? Do you think he's like romantically into her?
Yes.
Do you think he's just obsessed with her?
I thought it was in a romantic way.
Okay.
I thought they were going to get married, have 2 children, and live happily ever after.
2 little kaiju babies.
And I'm not counting out that can't still happen.
Okay.
Obviously, there's got to be some counseling. They've got to establish some boundaries. But I'm rooting for the kids.
Okay. Because I never got the sense in this movie that there was any sort of like, they wanted it to show us that there's like romantic chemistry, but like there's never any romantic chemistry. Like he doesn't any show like any affection for her romantically, and nor does he.
Gave her a futon, Tom. That's, in some cultures, giving someone a futon, I mean, you're as good as married at that point.
Okay, fair. But I just thought that was interesting kind of dynamic because, again, like, the movie wants you to think that they're going to kind of fall in love or that is the obsession, but I don't think it has anything to do with romance. I think it's 100% just Oscar's obsession for Gloria, and he's been obsessed with her since he's been a kid, and it's just when she came back, it just bubbled back up.
Okay. Well, once again, I will point to the futon. The evidence I have about futons is my wife and I purchased a futon together.
The rest is history.
And the rest is history.
Me and my wife are going through a divorce right now because we both eat Lunchables. So it's been pretty messy. She's had the pizza Lunchables. I've had the ham and turkey ones. It's getting aggressive.
As long as neither of you are the pizza Lunchable people, I think I can be friends with both of you.
Me and my wife had like a 10-minute conversation about Lunchables, and we started talking about how the pizza ones were like, oh, we got a pizza one. That was awesome. So gross.
No good.
It was so gross.
Like
cold tomato
sauce and unmelted cheese.
What were we thinking?
Come at us, pizza Lunchables. You were a terrible idea. Speaking of terrible ideas, the other scene I wanted to point out was Oscar's friend, is having this moment, which I thought was really clever and like smart of him, where he's like, have you ever noticed the monster is like walking amongst buildings but never looks down, never looks to where he's going? He's like, I feel like it's almost controlled by something, but it can't see its surrounding. And he goes through all this, and this is where we're starting to see her like realizing
she's connecting the dots.
Connection, and it's flashing to her making maps off of the screen.
Which I do appreciate the maps, the little red like yarn that goes from Seoul to wherever they are.
Yes, she's solving the mystery with yarn and a tack board. And we see her going to the playground. The music, I will say, the music in this really good. Like I didn't look up who scored it or anything, but the music cues are fun, and this is the moment where we find out who the murderer is and who the killer is. And then it ends with her doing the arm movements. She does her like arm movements, and then she sees the monster do the arm movements, and she knows. That whole sequence of Garth kind of like I guess he adds, because she's already suspicious, he adds to her suspicion and leads to that. I really like that whole sequence.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
The other scene I liked is her taking them to the park and showing them that she's the monster, and she's doing the dancing, and it's like playful. Like that's how this movie is. Like it goes from like kind of comedic and playful to like super dark, and then the helicopters are shooting at her, and then she knocks the helicopter out of the sky, and she's like, "Oh, that's too bad. I probably just killed that helicopter crew," and she starts feeling bad. And I think that's the same moment where he steps in, and we find out that the robot is also around.
Yeah.
So she falls.
There's a couple things I want to dissect there. So what's your overall take on like the way they treat like death in this movie? Like in terms of like, I don't know. Like I'm not a big fan of the way they treat it. Like she's like kind of sad, but she's not sad. Like she goes and steps on all these people and murders like potentially thousands of South Koreans, and then gets upset because she fell and then maybe like killed a couple hundred more. But like I feel like the remorse and like there's just so little done with that. Like Sudeikis obviously pushes it very hard kind of toward the end, but I just feel like they kind of gloss over like the killing of so many people.
Well, I think that there is a distance there where I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Like if you were like, hey, I killed 100 people today and you weren't sad about it, you'd be a psychopath. But I think because of what we're seeing is because there's distance, because it's like it's not her that's falling on the buildings. Like she didn't stab 100 people.
Yeah.
There's distance where I do think it's acceptable that it's almost like beyond comprehension of like, hey, I just killed all those people. I see what you're saying, but it would be really tough to grasp like, hey, I moved my arm today and I knocked over a building. Like I didn't see the building. I didn't feel the building.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we as a civilization have moved from stabbing people to trying to kill them with unarmed drones, is because it's much easier to take a life from a distance. So I see what you're getting at, but I also think like if you give her there's no precedence for this. Like no one in history is killing people by the hundreds through a kaiju, and so I understand her remorse, but I get what you're saying, but I also think there's enough distance there that it didn't bother me that she wasn't like weeping on the ground, being like, "Hey, I murdered all these." For one, she doesn't know who she murdered. She doesn't like feel it or see it. So that's kind of what. But I get what you're going for.
Yeah, and I think, well, I lost train of thought. Never mind.
So our stance is anti-smashing civilizations, correct?
Yes, that should be bad. And I think maybe it was the director's. It should be bad. Maybe it's part of the director's like a conscious decision to kind of like make it like nameless and faceless, because at a certain point Gloria does like deal with that fact, like, oh my gosh, I killed these people, or how many people did I kill, and blah blah blah.
Right.
But like they don't go to anything in South Korea. They don't like show all the people. But I would also argue maybe these people shouldn't be there around this exact same time of day, around the exact same area of Seoul. Maybe they should like quarantine that place. I don't know.
Tom, I think it's a reasonable explanation that if you're upset that you accidentally fell and destroyed a bunch of buildings, not to show up in the sandbox every school day morning.
Yeah.
Like, even if it is to keep Oscar, I don't know. I'm with you there. There was some stuff where you're like, wait, this problem might be solved by a couple of things.
Yeah.
Don't show up.
Yeah.
But that is part of the interesting thing, is where like Oscar forces her to like be there at a certain point.
Well, and I think so. Also in this scene, like you mentioned at the end here, Jason Sudeikis' character walks in, and then we see that he's a robot. And I feel like this is a changing scene for him as a character in this, because like once he sees like I've got power now, that's when it changes, and that's when he like really starts to seemingly try to own Gloria.
Right. And this leads to my other favorite scene. None of these are, I shouldn't say favorite, just like interesting.
Yeah, good scenes.
But it's like the scene where Oscar's drunk. I think they're there in the morning. They're taunting Seoul. Oh, and this is after her and Joel have spent the night together. And so this is where I would say like the romantic jealousy shows up, because he clearly has a moment where he sees she has shown up with Joel, and it's that early in the morning, so the most likely is that she spent the night with Joel.
And I think that's fair, but I think it's more of a possessive thing. I don't think Oscar has any romantic feelings for her.
Is that because he hasn't given her any roses? If he gave her like some roses or maybe a box of chocolates, would that have changed your opinion of their romance?
Biscuits. If he would have gave her biscuits, then maybe.
Self-cooked and baked biscuits.
Yep.
That would have changed in the British sense. If you guys are with us and have never watched Lasso, I don't know why you're here.
Way to sell it.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're right. This is also where Oscar goes off the rail a bit, and I think this is also the scene where you see or you hear for the first time that like people in the neighborhood are watching the kaiju and like they're cheering because Anne Hathaway steps in the playground and she gives him the like leave soul.
Get out of here.
And like everyone in the houses is like, yay! I thought that was an interesting effect. And you see it like Oscar realizes I'm the bad guy even in this weird like fantasy that's happening across the world. But he does do a cool thing. He's like, okay, I'll go. And like he not cool, but like it was just different. Like you expect him to put up a fight. And he's just like, all right. I think that's after she slaps him.
Yeah, and then that's where they do like the news coverage, like, oh, the kaiju is a good guy. He saved us from the evil robots.
The best. Those were my favorite scenes. I would say the other thing that comes into play is just that final, not the final fight where they're in opposite places, but the one where she realizes she can't show up there every morning. But yeah, those were my favorite scenes. Did you have any other scenes that you thought were noteworthy enough?
I feel like the other scene that really stands out to me, I don't know if I would say it's a great scene, but it was a very, I don't know, it was an emotional scene, was the fireworks in the bar. Sudeikis just, or I don't know, Oscar, just the way that character played that sequence and like trying to prove that he owns Gloria when he has like Tim, the other boy or the ex, kind of come back, and then he's in the bar and like he just goes full monster and full psychopath by letting out these fireworks.
Okay, on the second watch I understood that scene.
Yeah.
On the first watch I was like, what? Why? Like, what are we doing here? I did not understand it at all.
Yeah.
So I was like, you own that bar. You got to put out all that fire and replace all that furniture. What are we doing here? Like, I think I had to have my spouse explain, like, oh, he's doing it because he's showing Gloria, like, how drastic he will get if she leaves. And, like, how, like, destructive he will be, I guess is the...
So that's an interesting take. So I didn't have that take. I felt like it was more of like Oscar keeps saying like, what is the most irresponsible thing I can do in this bar right now?
Right.
And it's letting off these fireworks. And by doing this, I'm telling you, Tim, that she is not going to leave with you. She's going to stay here with me. That is him proving himself to Tim and to Gloria that regardless of what I do and how irresponsible, she's going to stay with me because she wants to be with me, kind of a thing, and is not going to leave with you.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to be with him. Not even in that moment. Yeah. Like, how it was explained to me was she's realizing if she does leave, he's going to not destroy Tokyo, but destroy Seoul. Forgive us, Godzilla. And so that is his, like, not subtle, not overt, whatever's in the middle of that, of, hey, if you leave, I will destroy my own bar. I certainly will go to that playground and destroy Seoul. And once again, I did not get that on the first watch, but the second watch, because part of me was like, wait, is Gloria now into Oscar because she loves fire and fireworks in a bar? Like, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, like, it maybe bleeds back into, like, conversation of, like, toxic masculinity and, like, him going so far to a point to say, it doesn't matter what I do or the things that I'm going to do, I'm going to own you and I'm going to victim shame you. And it's going to be your fault that these people die. It's not going to be my fault, even though I'm the one that's doing it and I'm the one causing all this chaos.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how setting his own bar on fire falls into that, but that's why I watched it twice, and on the second time I felt like I got a little bit more. There is a theme of some cowardice that runs through with our friend Joel as well as our friend Tim.
Whole lot of it.
Like, both those guys, maybe say something, maybe like intervene or do something. Joel was the one that really made me mad because like they're like fighting on the playground and he's like, I don't know that, does he punch her at one point? He punches her, he shoves her down, and Joel's just like on his iPad, I don't know, playing Angry Birds, watching Jason Sudeikis in Angry Birds. I don't know what he was doing.
Like, the only logical...
I hated Joel. I thought actually Joel was the one I hated the most in the movie. But,
that inaction is just so unspeakable. Like, the only explanation could be he thought if he walked onto the playground, he was going to turn into Mothra or something. Like, It's just, it made no sense. Like, he literally punches her, I think, in the stomach at a point, and he just, I think this was after, like, they had a relationship, and, you know, like, it was just, it was odd. And that's where I go back to what I said in the beginning, like, there's not really one redeemable or likable character in this, which I think is fascinating, to have all of your main characters be just absolute jerks, yet the movie somehow still works.
Sure. I mean, you could argue that Gloria at the very end has some redeemable characteristic traits. I do want to say that you mentioned Joel being afraid of walking onto the playground and discovering that he's Mothra. Wouldn't your first, like, if two people you knew were, like, on the playground and they turned into, like, giant kaiju, wouldn't your first be like, I don't know what kaiju I'd be? And you would hop in there, and then you'd be like, oh, I don't exist in this world? Like, I'd be like, well, I'm out. You guys have fun. Like, if I can't be Mothra, or if I can't be Robot Lizard, or whatever they are.
What, if you could be any kaiju from any kaiju-related film, what would you be?
Listen, I'd be Godzilla.
You would be?
I'd be Godzilla. He breathes fire. He's got that tail. He's not real mobile. Like, that's maybe... I'd probably try and slim down and work on my flexibility.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I breathe fire.
Yeah.
Like, I win.
That's fair.
Although some of them shoot like lasers and fly, so...
Yeah, I think I'd be Gypsy Danger from Pacific Rim. He's pretty dope.
I've never seen Pacific Rim, so...
It's not Pacific McRib. It's not sponsored by McDonald's.
The Pacific McRib they only release a couple of times a year.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
It's delicious.
Yeah. The stuff I found funny, Tom, and I don't know that there was a lot that I found funny, but I tried to look at the gems.
Listen, you always try to find the levity in life. That's what people say about you.
That's what they say about me, other than like, hey man, that guy's really negative. And let's not be around him. Every time Anne Hathaway wakes up, she groans, and being at the age where if you sleep wrong, your neck hurts, your back hurts.
Yeah.
Every time this happened, like, at one point she's trying to fill up the mattress and she just ends up using it as a blanket. She, like, wakes up with her head against the wall. Like, every time she wakes up, and she's like, ah! I was like, oh, I feel every moment of that, and I laughed because it was great.
Now, the assumption is it's just because she's getting blackout drunk and falling asleep in awkward positions. So, like, it's just ergonomically, she's just messed up when she wakes up?
Yeah, she's got a air mattress with a hole, which I would argue she probably just didn't screw in the thing. I'm not gonna, anyways. But
you're not gonna mansplain
mansplain air mattresses. But I don't think she read the directions. I'll just say that.
Well, it's toxic masculinity in this room.
Oh no,
I kid.
But I do think none of these people have great sleep schedules. They're drunk on a kid's playground at. Where are the police in this neighborhood? That's what I want to know. But yeah, I think it's just because she is so intoxicated and does not have a futon.
I feel like
that.
They keep mentioning that she's like, oh, you're blackout drunk, and she never remembers any conversation she has from the previous day or night.
Yeah, that's
but we never see her drunk. Like, we see her drinking, but you never see her, like, slur her words or get to a point where she's, like, making decisions that are outside of, like, what the movie is presenting to us.
Right, that's fair.
So I thought that was kind of weird. I almost, like, maybe think, like, is she narcoleptic? Maybe she just falls asleep randomly?
I think the rules of the movie and the assumption of the movie is that she is an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And we do see her, like, hung over, like, that sort of thing. But it is also Pabst Blue Ribbon, so I don't know if you can get drunk off Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, that's understandable.
There's this conversation they have in the truck after their meet cute, and he's like, oh, my dad died, and so I own the bar, and she's like, oh, I bet that was really hard for your mom, and he goes, well, she died well before my dad. She's like, she died long before that. You were still living here. Don't you remember? You were at the funeral. Like, that whole bit, I was like, all right, yeah, this is good. Classic romantic comedy with Jason Sudeikis and Anne Hathaway, and then it all went bad from there. But that conversation I really laughed at. When she calls Tim to tell him about the news in Seoul, she's like, I'm just in shock. And it's clearly like I need an excuse to call you.
Yeah.
And, like, for you to, like, comfort me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, That happened like 9 hours ago. What have you been doing since then?
Yeah.
And like puts her on the spot of, oh, you just woke up because you were up all night drinking.
Yeah.
Or have narcolepsy.
We don't know yet.
We don't know. That makes Sam a really bad person if she's not an alcoholic and just narcoleptic. I thought that bit was very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And her relationship with the deflated mattress, I thought was great. Like, at one point, she just used it as a blanket. At one point, she wakes up and it's deflated. At one point, she rolls up in it. And that's where she has the realization if she goes to Seoul, her kaiju will be in... I'm going to say Youngstown, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, no, he calls it Mainhead. Joel calls it Mainhead.
Mainhead?
I looked it up. I couldn't. I don't think it's a real place.
Okay. So just Mainhead, Central America.
Mainhead, Pennsylvania is what
okay.
I'd say.
There we go. I feel like...
Maybe it's upstate New York. That's the other thing I thought.
Oh, there you go. Sure. So northeastern United States. I did like the little bit they do about like... who's a Garth's character is like doing that little magic trick or whatever where he kind of lights the tea bag on fire and it kind of flies up into the sky. Right. And like Oscar keeps telling him like just don't do the story, man.
Just do the trick.
Just do the trick. I just want to see the trick. And then he does the trick. Would have been better with the story.
Yeah, that's great. He's like, you guys aren't even listening. Well, the story's not really. Just do the trick.
I felt like the story was gonna be good. Like he's kind of talking about like I don't know rockets and space and I don't know. It would have been pretty good.
Right. I have down here to talk about quotes, but I gotta be honest, I don't know that there were a lot of quotable moments in this movie.
Not so much.
But I did have some questions, Tom, so I'd like to run through some of my questions.
I've got at least half the answers.
If you had a playground that you could go to every morning at 8:05, and it would conjure a kaiju in Seoul, what would you do with that power? What would you do?
Did we ever establish in the movie what the distance of the kaiju like movement is? Like, is it the whole like the playground is all like kind of blocked off and it's got little wood chips and stuff in it?
Sand. It's the sand area of a playground.
Okay. Yes. So that if she is anywhere or Oscar's anywhere on that, kaiju's going to appear.
That's what I understood.
But what is that distance in kaiju feet? Like, is it like a big swath of
Tom,
Seoul?
At no point during the movie did they give us a kaiju feet to real feet ratio.
Okay, so we're assuming it's a 1-to-1 then. I guess I just wouldn't know. Like, if I was a kaiju...
No, not 1-to-1, because she takes a step and she steps on a building. So
but
it's like
as far
1
as she
to 100
steps,
yards.
But as far as she steps, the kaiju steps. Like, the kaiju is just a big version of her when she is there.
No, because she steps, 2 feet. The kaiju takes a step.
Like 200 feet
and
or
he's
something.
200 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. So not the same distance.
It's 1-to-1. Okay, no, wait, I know.
Okay, all right.
Agree to disagree. But I mean, if I was only in Seoul, I mean, I guess my options would be limited. I think I would just fight really big crime.
You would fight really big crime.
I mean, I can't fight small crime. I'm a kaiju.
So you would logistically have to communicate with someone in Seoul. You'd find like a grizzled detective. We'll call him Gordon. Detective Gordon before eventually he becomes commissioner in Seoul. This is all just hypothetical. And Gordon would I don't know. How do you get the attention of something that's very large? Maybe he shoots a light into the sky.
It's a great idea.
And as soon as you see the light on your iPad, you appear and he points the light at the crime.
Now, is he pointing the light in Mainstown?
Well, here's what happens, tragically. Is he shoots the light into your eyes, you fall, and destroy a bunch of people. And then big government comes in and cuts all your funding.
What funding? Was I getting funding?
I don't know. I haven't written the screenplay out yet. It's called Colossal 2. Gordon and Tom fight crime. If I was a kaiju and I had this kind of power, I would just sell advertising on my body, and I would write in the sand. I'd be like, watch my TikTok, whatever, and then I'd just make millions
Follow
of money.
Team Binge on Twitter.
There you go, exactly. Or I'd send them to our website, Tom, which you did a beautiful job designing.
Yes.
We have a website. Tom, what is our website?
It is teambinge.com.
And what can you do at said website, Tom?
You can find...
Browse?
You could browse. You could peruse. You can do all sorts of adjectives. We've got a link to all of our RSS feeds, so you can get all of our episodes on there. We've got some merch that's live and available for you guys. It's just it's got a Team Binge logo. It's a fun way to kind of support us if you're enjoying the show.
Tom and I have no illusions about becoming wealthy off of what we're doing here.
Yes.
But what we would be interested in is go look at the merchandise, and we'd like to know people's ideas of what we should put on said merchandise. Some things we've discussed is Team Michelle or Team Ted. For those of you, I know there's a lot of people that are really rooting for Michelle Lasso out there. We are not one of them.
You are not one of them.
I am not one of them.
I'm still on the fence.
Okay, and that's where that comes from. So Tom would buy a Team Michelle Lasso t-shirt. I will always buy Team Ted. But anyways, let us know your thoughts. And Tom did a great job. I just want to compliment Tom.
Why thank you.
On how he did.
And then you can find us on all of our different social medias. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Tom spent tens and tens of minutes creating that website.
Yeah.
So
the least you can do is spend tens and tens of dollars buying a stupid shirt you'll never wear.
They're great workout shirts. Or if you're ever going to paint a house, you wear it while you're painting.
They're great painting shirts.
All right, back to questions I have, Tom. If you were living in a house like a squatter, what 3 things would you want your friends to bring over that you could borrow? And this is where this question comes from.
Okay.
She apparently shows up at her family's rental house.
I feel like it had to have been their family's house.
Well, she says no one's renting it right now. So, but it's not furnished. Anyways, we don't need to go in. We're not sponsored by Big VRBO or Airbnb or Uber. I'm just naming apps at this point. But so you're stuck in a house, no furniture. You got to live there for, say, a month. You get to ask for 3 things to borrow from a friend. What would be your 3 things?
I feel like as a recent COVID victim who had to stay in isolation for a while, COVID survivor, yes, a couch, an Xbox, and a TV. I feel like those are the things that I need. I guess I need an internet connection. Can I have 4 things?
No.
Crap.
You get 3. Them's the rules, bud.
All right, no couch. Internet connection. Is the internet connection a thing? Or is it a router? Is that a package deal?
We'll put that together.
Okay.
We'll put that together as one.
Internet, TV. Oh, man. This is tough now. Yeah, I gotta go on Xbox, man.
Okay. So you're just sleeping on the hardwood floor.
Listen, I did a lot as a kid. It's good for your back.
Okay. Oh, wow. You heard it here. Dr. Tom says sleeping on the hardwood floor, good for your back. Have you ever been in a situation like that where you had to live sparsely, I don't know, in college or as a young man, when your parents found that special vase under your bed and kicked you out for a couple of weeks?
No, but I did choose. I had a nice little twin bed as a kid and chose to sleep on the floor for most of my youth.
Okay. My 3 things, thanks for asking, Tom, would be a futon.
Okay, it's a dual purpose.
A futon, a TV, which has a built-in VHS and DVD player.
So an old tube.
Yes, an old tube TV that
which
has those
they
things
had.
built in.
They wheeled in that tube TV.
That's true.
Amazing.
I was like, are you really grateful for that television? That seemed like one that the bar didn't need anymore.
100%.
It's just let's wheel it over. And then the complete DVD season of
Buffy.
No, not Buffy. I would go with The Office. I would go with the DVD set of The Office. I'm going to sit or sleep on my futon. I'm going to watch The Office on my television, and I'm going to live life. And if I need internet, I'm going to move to that weird corner where you can get it from the clubhouse.
All right, fair enough.
And to answer your question, yes, I did live like this for a number of months when I moved out to the East Coast for a while, before my wife showed up with all the furniture.
And The Office was your DVD of choice?
I want to say it was either The Office or it might have been Arrested Development.
Okay. Both fantastic choices.
In hindsight, yeah, I'd take either, but I just thought in terms of number of episodes, because Arrested only has 2.5, none of those other seasons are recognized by us.
Yep.
The Office has more seasons. Anyways. When he purposely goes to the playground, she goes and hits him like 3 times. This is like later in the movie.
Okay.
He grabs her hands and he says to her, "No punching." And he makes a like concerted effort not to move his feet. Like he's provoked her.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Hey, get out of the sandbox." He won't go out of the sandbox. She comes in. She hits him repeatedly. He like grabs her hands and he's like, "Hey, no punching."
Mm-hmm.
And he won't like move his feet. Like he's consciously not trying to destroy houses in Seoul. They fall over. She bites him. My question is, in this moment, who's the bad guy? He's not destroying anything. He's just in Seoul. He's like, I think he's taunting the people of Seoul.
This is when he was drunk and he was like...
I think this is when she's coming in with Joel. And
Okay.
he is there with Garth.
Yes, okay.
And he's not destroying anything. He's just there. She then rolls in, hits him several times. He's like, "Hey, no punching." But you can watch him. He's like making a concerted effort not to like step everywhere. Mm-hmm. But she like escalates it, and then I think she falls over.
She falls over, and then while she's on the ground,
fighting him.
Okay, I don't know if I remember that. But like that's when she's on the ground, and then he starts stomping, right?
No. That's later.
I'm sorry.
This one, he's like purposely going out of his way to not destroy anything. But then she like goes in there and is like, "Get out."
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you is, who's the bad guy in that scene? Because I feel like he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just giving the people a robot show.
I mean, and like that's exactly what she was doing to them earlier when she was like proving that she was there. She was just dancing and then getting shot by helicopter rockets. So yeah, again, don't think any of these characters in this movie have a whole lot of redeeming qualities, and this is another reason why she's not the greatest either.
Yes, but in this situation, we're pro Sudeikis, anti Hathaway. We'll go on record. All right, moving to the next scene. I did appreciate the quote of she knees him in the groin, and he says, "Not a direct hit, but you got the majority of them down there."
That was a good like throwaway line that if you it's an easy to miss one, but I chuckled.
Yeah, that was great. Tom, when she goes to Seoul and her kaiju appears in
Mainstown.
Mainshead.
Mainsburg.
Wouldn't she be destroying her whole town by walking around? Like,
yes. You're 100% right.
How does she know where the sandbox is in Seoul?
It doesn't make any sense. Like, the only thing that we can say is she did, like, the quote-unquote math to then figure out, like, where it kind of started. But that's what, like, I didn't get. Like, she just kind of put her hand, like, on, I don't know, like, part of a park that was just kind of all stone concrete. And that's where I struggle with like the whole aspect ratio of the kaiju appearing there and her appearing here. But she 100% when she did that, cool. It was the neat subversion to then take him and then I don't know, could have just probably called the cops in Mainsburg town and got him to stop. But it was a bold choice, and she probably
is bold the right word, Tom?
That's what I'm using.
I could have used more cartography. This is my complaint about most movies. More cartography. Give me more maps. Give me more ratios. Tom, when they're kids, and this starts the whole thing, why does Oscar crush her diorama? Rama?
Diorama? My only take is if you look at his diorama when he was a kid, he has one of Madrid. So she does Seoul, and he does Madrid. His is dog crap. So he was probably upset about how awesome hers was. He's got like a little cow on it and some little like, I don't know, cardboard houses and stuff. Terrible diorama.
Okay, and there's also a mirroring here, and I want to make sure I'm just not projecting my own toxic masculinity. Did I use the term right?
You nailed it.
Okay. So while I'm toxicing my masculinity, the question I have for you is, she thinks he's going to save her diorama, right? Like she's got this feeling of, oh, he's helping me out. He climbed the fence, and he like finally gets it, and you're like, oh, he's going to help her out. And then he crushes it. Mm-hmm. And this is a mirror of him as an adult, right?
Yes.
And this is proving the fact that we cannot change. Who we are as terrible children is who we will be as adults, right? Terrible kid, terrible adult. We can't change, we can't grow. Tom, I give you the... Please answer.
I'd hope that's not the case, but
All
maybe.
right, it is the case. You can't change. If you're a terrible child, you're a terrible adult. You heard it here first on the Julian and Tom Show. Now to traffic. The cow is rubbish?
I'm pretty sure you're reading that from the outline. It's got like a little cow on it.
Who does?
On Oscar's diorama. It's got like a little cow. It's just a rubbish diorama.
I remember doing a diorama when we were doing like Roman or Greek like history that time period, and this kid, we both know him, I won't use his name, clearly had done no research, done nothing. He did the Colosseum, but he filled the Colosseum with like a cornfield, and there were like Conestoga wagons and like other things, and the teacher was like, what is all this? And he's like, oh, it's a field of corn, they were doing. And it was like, and everyone in the class was just like, oh man, like I'm 12 years old and I know he really did not do this assignment. Anyways,
that's great.
That's what I thought about. Dioramas are great. I wish most of my life I should have been an architect, because all they do for a living is make dioramas.
So you asked the question, why did Oscar crush the diorama? But
Yeah.
I would ask the question, why did the lightning crush Gloria's head?
You mean, why did the lightning just touch her head and cause it to bleed a little bit and then give her a weird itch for the rest of her life?
Yeah.
I don't know, Tom. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that I realized like that's where the head scratch came from and all that until the second watch. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she said it was like a nervous tick, but that's where she got it. So it's like when she's feeling nervous or whatever, she's touching her... Again, I don't know what that is to her outside of this very emotional moment. And like throughout the whole movie, she's like recalling this incident. So are we to understand that she doesn't remember it all until like the certain dream or whatever she has where like this all comes back to her?
I don't know. Once again, in most movies and shows, it's like, hey, why don't you guys talk? And you'd be like, hey, remember the time we were kids and the lightning struck me in the head and you destroyed my diorama? Yeah, I think that's where this all stems from. Can you not be an ass? Like, boom, we solved it. I don't know if that would fix Oscar, but I just want more communication. I do feel like he's like, hey, I'm going to be here. If you don't show up, I'm going to be here every morning doing this. And he's like destroying buildings. I'd be like, okay, well, the sandbox is a pretty limited size, so I'm just going to communicate to Soul, like, hey, clear out this area. Yeah. After like 4 mornings, Oscar's destroyed everything. No one lives there. I'm going to go live with Tim and continue to be a drunk. That's how I saw this movie. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's the answer I came up with.
Does she want to go back to Tim? I feel like Tim's kind of a jerk, too. When Tim comes back to, like, confront her and clearly... he's trying to lie and say, oh, I'm coming back for a meeting, when he's clearly trying to check up on her, and then like throws all of her baggage back onto her. Like, he's not a good guy.
Tom, I'm going to quote one of my good friends by saying, I don't think there's a redeemable character in this, so you're right. She's probably not trying to go back to Tim. Everyone's awful.
Except for Joe. Joe just wanted his coffee, man. He just wanted his coffee, but he had to light fireworks in that bar.
That's fair. I actually don't think... Is Garth a bad guy, other than having a little bit of cocaine needs? I don't think that Garth's all that bad.
He was still there. He was still complicit in all of these murders in Seoul. Like, He knew... Like, everybody knew what was going on, so...
There's been a murder. What's this movie trying to tell us, Tom? I'm going to give you the top thing this movie's trying to tell me.
Tell you.
Other than the whole toxic masculinity thing, which I clearly understand and don't have any weird doubts about or confused by. This movie's telling us, beware of nice guys. They're probably just trying to manipulate you and destroy the South Korean capital. That's what I got from this. It's like, I don't know. I sometimes think movies like this can make you so cynical to someone like just trying to be nice or do you a favor, where you're like, what's this person trying to...
What's their angle?
What are they trying to control? So, at face value, I'm going to go on the, life advice. I'm going to take Ted Lasso's. I'm just going to assume most people are like trying to do the right thing and trying to be kind, not trying to make you dependent on them and being manipulative. But... Ted Lasso in this movie teaches us that he's just trying to kill all those people in South Korea.
See, now I would say you're generally a kind-hearted person. You do things for others. That's a nice thing. But I never pictured you as a guy that wanted to destroy Seoul. I assumed you wanted to destroy like Sydney or I don't know, somewhere like Lisbon, Portugal. I don't know. Those seem like more of the places you'd like to destroy.
Those all seem like lovely countries. The places I want to destroy are like Atlantis. And where's Thanos from?
Oh, I don't know. Thanosville.
Thanosburg. Those are the places I want to destroy. The other thing I learned from this movie, cardio is important because she runs all the way to the park, and because she's got bad cardio, she gets beat up. If she would have been running, working out, she probably would have won that fight.
It's a good call.
Turning a map upside down solves most problems.
What did she do?
It just slips on like the tack. It like swings upside down. Like,
and
it's
that's
tacked
her.
on,
okay.
And that's where then she like rolls in the inflated or deflated mattress. Inflated would be interesting. And that's when she has the idea, if I go to Seoul, like it's flipped upside down, the opposite. You got to be a real thinker to see those things in this type of movie.
It's a black hole scenario. It's
some kind of something. Tom, is the bad guy in this movie really a bad guy? The answer to that is yes. Most definitely.
In some movies, you can make an argument for the bad guy and their motivations. This one, not so much.
He did it really well, though. He's charming, and he went dark well. I don't know. I thought the only time I had a problem with his acting, and I don't know if we'll both say when Jason Sudeikis' like moment was strange. I'm gonna count to 3. We'll both say it at the same time because I think we're on the same page. 1, 2, 3. When she was holding him in his hand and he was like, "Let me down, you be." I was like, it was almost like SNL comedic like anger, like over the top. Did you get that at all?
It was like the movie telling us that he's not going to change. He's still going to be a jerk.
He's scared but angry. Like, yeah. I don't know. It was a strange moment.
He wasn't going to like beg for it or something like that. Like he was going to be a jerk till the end.
Right. Yeah, I didn't need that moment. I wish she would have just crushed him, and I wish we would have seen his pulpy body fall to the ground. I said before, and I'll say it again, I think Joel's the worst. I think he might be worse than Jason Sudeikis' character.
Yeah, the inaction with him, I agree. Like, even the very end, they do a little bit where he sees her, like, walking the streets of Seoul, and then he kind of gives that coy little smile to camera as he's, like, watching the news report, like, oh, good for you. And it's like, no, man, like, you're a jerk.
You're not a part of this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's so much stuff you could have done to
You're part of the problem with your masculine toxicity.
That's exactly, you nailed it. Shy of.
Tom, is there stuff that you would do with this movie to make it better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not gonna tell you.
Yeah, don't tell me. Let's go to the next section, which is thank you for subtitles. There's a part where subtitles told me that the tense music is timed to eye movement, and I was like, oh, thanks. And it's when it's like the last scene before she starts beating him up with furniture, where they're like looking at each other back and forth, and they like blink, and like the strings go as they blink. Subtitles literally says tense music timed with eye movement. I was like, all right, cool, thanks.
I do love a good subtitle that describes music or that kind of bit.
Love subtitles. Tom, I'll make this movie better. We'll go back.
Let's please. I have a comment, but I feel like I want to know your bits first.
Mine is a simple changing of an actor or actress.
Okay.
Put Charlize Theron in Jason Sudeikis' character. Makes the movie better. She's menacing. She's awesome. She'd be a great kaiju robot. Charlize Theron. I think my theme is put Charlize Theron in any movie and makes it better.
Mr. F.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, nice. I know the budget wasn't there because this was supposed to be the cheapest Godzilla movie possible.
Yeah.
But give me a big scene with the robot and kaiju and Hathaway kaiju fighting. Like,
it would have been fun.
It would have been fun.
It was just kind of slapping. They didn't have the budget to like have them intertwine.
Right. And then that battle's interrupted by Matthew Broderick and Jean Reno showing up in a New York cab. That would have been better. I did not need the weird furniture battle scene that I mentioned before. There's the scene where their eyes move with the music.
Yeah.
And then she hits him with a chair. He breaks the arm off the futon. She then puts the bookcase on him. And then she traps him in a corner with the giant television.
It was
one of those moments where you're like, I don't think that would work.
I don't know what the end game of that like fight sequence was. Like, I don't think Gloria could have taken him in that situation, like unless that TV maybe fell on him, because that TV probably weighed like 8,000 pounds. But like it seemed like she was just trying to stop him from going to the park, and he was always just going to go to the park to do his kaiju stuff. But it was a very kind of clumsy sequence.
Yeah, I was like, I honestly thought they might kill him in the corner there when she slams him with the big television. And I was like, oh, this is like a comically bad, like, I don't think I've watched him more than once, but there's the scene in, what's the dumb British Michael Myers,
Austin
Powers, where he rolls over the guy with the steamroller,
yeah.
And it's real slow, and the guy's like, like the way she moves the television and he's in the corner.
I think he even says, don't do it. Don't do that.
I was like, just stop the TV. Like, stand up and put your arms up. That TV's like, the momentum of a TV is not going to...
It's on rollers. He just kind of pushes it away.
Anyways,
it's fine.
I hope that Mythbusters do a TV murdering scene and we find out whether or not someone would die from that.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Anything you would do to make the movie better?
A
perfect movie better.
The perfect movie. I wish I would have explored the idea of like her getting kind of hit by the missiles and her like being like, "Ow!" Like this kind of hurts.
Yeah, she's like, I don't like that.
Yeah, like weird. I thought that was kind of interesting because it kind of breaks like you just assume she's like a impenetrable Super Bob style hero that can't take any damage, but she was clearly kind of feeling it. So her like stepping on buildings and all that stuff, like exploring that a little bit more could have been interesting. But I do, after watching this movie and seeing the ending, I'm quite certain this is a prequel to Ted Lasso.
Okay. All right.
So in the end,
feed it to me, Tom. I did not see this coming, so feed it to me.
In the final sequence of the movie, what does Gloria's kaiju do? She takes Oscar, Jason Sudeikis' character.
She throws him.
Throws him for who knows how long. It seems like the kaiju, flies in the sky for days. Who knows how far Jason Sudeikis' characters get.
And the assumption is she's throwing him west.
Throwing him west, yes. Throwing him somewhere, maybe Midwest, maybe Kansas, for example.
Okay.
He lands in a pool, perfectly fine. Okay. He then starts to coach a youth football team.
Sure.
We'll say football.
Hasn't
gone to soccer. Changes. He meets this lovely lady, Michelle, at a bar playing darts. It's an old Western bar playing darts.
It's gonna end tragically.
And then the rest ensues. So this is Ted creating a new persona after he realizes, man, first shot in Mainsburg didn't work out well. I'm going to do this in Kansas, Wichita. Then he's realizing Kansas thing's not going very good. I got to go over the pond. Got to go over to London town and then do that. I mean, where do you think we got Led Tasso, bro?
No.
This is Led Tasso's coming out from his Oscar-ness.
This is all good. No, I agree with you. And if you change the letters of Oscar, it forms Ted Lasso.
It does.
That's incredible. Good work, Tom.
I tried.
You did a great job. Tom, would you recommend this movie to people?
This is an interesting film. Like, it's hard to say I'd recommend it because it is just so subversive. And I think if you do recommend it, you got to tell somebody. Like, you can't give away like what's going on with it, because if you do, then people are like, no, I don't want to see that. So I don't know. I guess I would. I would say it's worth the watch. We're obviously recording a long podcast on it, and we didn't necessarily know what we were getting into while watching it. We just had Jason Sudeikis, but I thought it had enough cool beats, and it's fun to watch a movie that isn't the same as every other movie you've seen.
Right. I would say yes, because it's well acted. At no point while watching the movie was I like, how much longer is this movie? Like, checking my phone. Like, I was engaged. And part of that was because I was like, what is happening in this movie? Where are they going? What are they trying to do? Once again, everyone acts really well. It's well done in terms of shot and everything. When it's done, it's not like, oh, I want to watch that again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like thrilled with it. It doesn't make you feel good, but it's kind of like, all right. And since I've watched it, I've given it some thought as to like, okay, so there's some like deeper meaning in here. It's who are we in terms of how do we like subtly manipulate the people we're around? Like, what are our intentions? What's our toxic masculine, I don't know, tendencies. I don't know. So I would recommend it, but with the caveat of like, hey, do you want to watch a weird movie? Like, it'll be interesting to talk about it afterwards. Go watch what's it called, or have you seen Colossal? I don't know why I said what's it called. I know what it's called. Like, have you seen Colossal? Like, that movie's like trippy, but it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not one that, once again, I'm not going to go to the Walmart bin and buy the DVD for $5. But
yeah.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, and I've thought about it more than I thought I would.
And I don't think we said this at the top, maybe we did, but we watched this on Hulu. I'm sure you can watch it on some other streaming services and things like that.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Currently free on Hulu. If you love Anne Hathaway, if you love Jason Sudeikis, if you love A Dolphin's Tale 2, give it a go. But
it is a fun, like, again, just like we did Super Bob and seeing Brett Goldstein be a completely different character. I mean, you're going to get that with this movie and Jason Sudeikis. He plays a completely different character. He still has some of the edges of kind of like, you know, the little quips and just kind of his general kind of demeanor. But yeah, it's just it flips that Ted Lasso role upside down. And it's an interesting.
It was fun to, I don't know if fun's the right word. It was like interesting to see him do something, and he does a great job. And then I would argue that very few actresses do like, I'm at a place where I'm a mess better than Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a movie called Rachel Getting Married where she's like the sister of the bride and she's clearly like the black sheep of the family. And she does that role like really well. So, and as we've stated before, we both like Anne Hathaway. Yeah. So we appreciate you going on this journey with us. This movie relates to Lasso because of Sudeikis. And we're not going to apologize for watching it or talking about it because I actually had a good time with the movie.
We did get the inside scoop about Ted Lasso Season 3, and spoiler, there's going to be kaijus.
Every player gets a kaiju. Anyways, look us up at the things that Tom mentioned earlier in terms of social media. Check out the website. Once again, Tom did a great job. And if you have questions or comments, email us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on your preferred social media at Team Binge. I have been Julian.
And I will always be Tom. Bye, everybody.